All right, team, we are back in the Fireside PM podcast, and today I've got Carl Wu in the show, and we're going to get into the nitty gritty of what it was like for Carl building a AI first product from scratch. And he agreed to come and share some of the learnings through that experience. Welcome to the show, Carl.
Excited to be here. Thanks, Tom.
Yeah. Well, before we get into your AI building experience, why don't you give us a little background about your at a high level, just so folks know, how you came into this.
Yeah, absolutely. Long time product leader here. A lot of experience in ML and AI-based products. I actually started my career as an engineer in Microsoft. I became a PM, and even though when after I became a PM, the product that I PM are fairly technical. I worked on search engine for Tencent, and then I built ML-based video feed as a project for my first own startup. And most recently, ChatGPT, what that really is something right at my alley, and actually build something and launch something in the legal industry. I'm obviously personally I'm excited about this AI wave, and I feel there's tremendous just potential for building AI product as a sort of personal PM.
Yeah, Carl, you mentioned that you started out as an engineer. I would love to kind of get your thoughts on what that was like transitioning from engineering to product. And there might be some people out there who are watching this who are software engineers who've always thought about going into product. Like, what advice would you give them on that transition?
Yeah, my transition was, I didn't feel this a major sort of hurdle or a big thing to overcome. I was fed up with just being told what to do and what to build, taking requirements from PM, and this was, 2008, 2009, right? Like you see Steve Jobs on stage showing the iPhone. I thought, that looks pretty cool, and sounds like, the closest role to that, in tech team is more like a PM. So I just, lucky to find some teams that are willing to take a chance in me. And as I mentioned, I think the technical background helps because the product I end up PMing are technical products. But to your question, I would say the biggest sort of mental switch would be thinking from a sort of a system optimization, system operational standpoint to a more user. Do we optimize for the system or do we optimize for the user? That's kind of the phrase came to. It is quite a switch in terms of that mindset, but I guess you don't have to be totally in that mindset the first day you become a PM. I think but that's sort of to me the primary shift.
Yeah, I'm curious, Carl, when you were an engineer working with PMs, did you find it easier to work with the PMs who had a really deep technical background and might have been former SWEs? Or what? Yeah, I'm curious, like, what was that like working with different types of PMs as an engineer?
Oh, how, like the PM that I partner with as engineer, what type of PM they are? Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I think there's a theory out there, and it stands to reason that, if a PM used to be an engineer, they should be kind of able to bring along the engineers more easily because they're kind of like one of their own and they've been through the trenches.
Okay.
Is that true?
I think so. I think just my experience is actually not only true, it's required because I worked on fairly technical products. But I think in general, if you think about, I think it's true that you can, take AI now, for example, right? One of the
Mhm.
challenges for building AI product is you have this new fast changing boundary or ceiling of what AI can do, right?
Mhm.
And then as the PM, you need to, or just any product builder, you want to capitalize that by knowing that boundary, and then also obviously you need to merge with the use case, and but knowing that boundary and be able to sort of get that out of the not just engineer but a researcher, right?
Mhm.
The latest model training, all the limitations and so on and so forth. So yeah, I think it's actually pretty essential to the job.
Yeah, that's super cool. You mentioned you did a lot of ML, and then when LLMs came out, it sounds like you were really excited right away. A lot of us were like, okay, that's cool. To generate some tokens, like,
Just right.
we'll see where it goes. It sounds like you were instantly like pretty fired up about it. What was that like when you first saw, Gen AI kind of demonstrate its capabilities?
Yeah, I think the initial reaction is similar to, everybody was seeing those ChatGPT screenshots going viral, how you can now write email using it instead of, write it yourself. So, um, but I think gradually, I think it's the sort of the gradually the PM side of me is thinking is like, what can I do with this thing?
Hmm.
And I started to develop some thesis about, what would be the is it should it be a B2C product, B2B, like where is the, even whether I build something or not, what's the value about it. So when I talk to someone, like you, I sound intelligent, right? And I'm not just like, hey, this thing's cool. I have something, deeper. And then the thesis really I thought of is really, this I was really excited about vertical AI,
Hmm.
as I see synergy between LM along with its document processing capabilities, data transformation, conversation abilities. I see a lot of that just, connects the dot for me with, you know, white collar professional workflows that people have to deal with a lot of intakes, document processing, reviews, and drafting. It just hit me that that's a pretty big sort of that's a pretty big a connection there. Yeah.
Yeah. So you were, I think all of those use cases make a ton of sense, and you can see that bearing out in the world already now. So I think you were right. I'm curious how you thought about potentially competing with the foundational models. Like it seems like they have been getting more capable, uh, every month. And I remember when ChatGPT first came out, there was a whole wave of ChatGPT wrapper startups.
Right.
And then it was like, wait a minute, like, why would it be so hard for ChatGPT to make a meeting note taker or something like that?
Uh, yeah.
What's your view? How did you think about that? Was that the reason why you wanted to go vertical? Was it because you thought, okay, in this case, legal, like ChatGPT is going to be more of a horizontal model no matter what. So there's some specialized kind of tuning that you would do.
Yeah, I think that, and also I just feel then I know who my users are.
Mm.
Um, if I, yeah, if say I'm pitching, as opposed to, oh, I think one is know who my user are. Two is, I guess, just the instinct that, you know, a horizontal general LM is not gonna meet that, custom workflow. Just like we need, pre AI, we have all this, enterprise SaaS that
Hmm.
involve a lot of customer workflows and, and there's huge business behind it. I thought a lot of that value was the customization and integrations, and so but then yeah, I think I think that's one. And also um uh yeah, and then and then I ended up with legal.
Yeah. So tell me the journey to building this, legal product. What was the aha moment that caused you to say, "Hey, maybe I could build something for this problem"?
Yeah, I was lucky to join a company, AI legal company, as the head of product, as the founding AI PM,
Mhm.
to build that. And with the sort of in back of my head that yeah, legal was a perfect fit for that thesis. It's, I frame it as this Venn diagram with one circle being the core LLM strength, where the other circle are some sort of high commercial value use case, and then I want to find the overlap between those two circles. And legal seems to be a great fit, right? Lawyers charge $500 an hour, so it's pretty high value. So that's how I got started, and then we start to go about the 0 to 1. The 0 to 1 journey is um, still a 0 to 1, regardless of AI. We still have to identify a burning use case that we can
Mhm.
build. We can work backward on the MVP. And then I call that the market. And then we still need a product to fit that market. We still have to find that product market fit.
Mhm.
So that 0 to 1 principle applies. For us, specifically, one of the key lesson there was to you know, it's the story how we find our um, how we find our specific use case. We were working specifically in the immigration law practice, and
Mhm.
there are and then that's structured by all different type of visa type, and we need to pick one. And we're getting all this, we did the usual, the interviews and the design partner with the lawyers. But then it's only when we saw sort of a behavior from some of the law firm, some of the lawyer that where when they actually outsource some of their drafting to journalists. So some petitions are so hard to I guess to research and draft. They outsource that work, primarily to journalists. So that behavior so just carry more weight, for me. So we decide to
Mm.
hone in on that specific visa type and build an MVP to use AI to draft those letters for them.
What was it that the human journalists were doing? Was it just their ability to kind of be a good storyteller, or were they doing research as well into
Yeah,
the
yeah,
the
yeah,
case?
both. Yeah, both. I think immigration legal case is similar to much more complicated resume. You take some of the basic info and then you try to
Mhm.
build up your case. Other AI technology. But before we go into the technology, I was um, I have a big focus on the quality of the outputs, because
Mhm.
yeah, we all know ChatGPT can spit out some sort of drafting,
Mhm.
but whether it meets the requirement, that has been sort of the underlying sort of uh, a key theme, for me. And to achieve that, to use AI to automate all that, yet still maintain a high quality outputs, I was, we had sort of two routes we can choose. First is to uh, still have a lot of lawyers involvement. Essentially, even though we do the final generation using AI, but we still invite the lawyer to participate closely, you know, such as filling out some sort of questionnaires and answer a lot of questions to sort of guide AI along the way. Sort of a high touch option. And the second option is no human involvement, just go all AI. We just rely on some of the documentation that
Mhm.
that they can upload, and AI would, use reasoning and
Mhm.
just push the envelope to get AI to as close as possible to what they need. And I end up, it was an interesting choice because to me it's a dilemma between, do I take risk on the user, right? Because the user, because the user cost, the user has to spend time still, to support you with version 8, or do I take risk on the technology side? And I, think back my lessons from building, products at Uber. In the early days, I decided, as as a 0 to 1 product, as something that as disruptive as AI, I should try to take the technology risk first. Optimize for user experience,
Mhm.
give them the easiest experience possible, and just absorb all the complexity on the system and
Mhm.
see how far can we go. Obviously, there's some AI tactics we have to go to, you know, um, to make sure it's good. But then, um, but I'm glad I chose that route, and it worked out pretty well when we demoed those products, and the result to the lawyers. They were blown away.
Yeah. So, how long did it used to take them to write what you were able to generate almost instantly?
It's crazy. It could go 6 months or more.
Oh,
to,
wow.
to the point that some law firm, they don't want to take those cases. They lose money on those cases that they they actually they don't want those business. Uh, Now, I think if with with the adequate document, including generation and then later review and sign off, it could take as fast as 48 hours.
Wow. That's amazing. So, I'm guessing, like, in my head, I'm thinking, okay, there's a bunch of documentation from the applicant, like their resume and transcripts and publications, that kind of thing.
Right.
Then there's some prompt that describes like what we're looking to get out of it and some guardrails.
Yeah.
Um, did you also have to train an entirely new model, or were you able to use a foundational model that you can get from OpenAI, but just give it a great prompt with this additional kind of documentation, to as source material?
Yeah, yeah. Without going too much into the technical specific, I think one of the key sort of learning there is, whether we train our own models or not. I found those, a good prompt system is a lot more than just writing some prompts.
Hmm.
I think that's critical. That's critical for to achieve that high quality level of outputs that I mentioned earlier.
Yeah,
Yeah.
could you maybe just share a little bit about what, and maybe an example of what makes a better prompt versus like a kind of okay prompt?
Yeah, yeah. I think right. I think the prompt writing prompt is a big part of it. It is a skill of writing good prompts. But for building sort of professional production system like that, um, there's other components. For example, there's a key. Is a key. It's important to also have an evaluation system to evaluate our constantly evaluate our outputs. The way I would sort of describe it, um, I think the key is to, the key question is, what, who do we use? Do we use human or do we use AI to evaluate the outputs? Because we can
Mhm,
easily generate some sort of outputs with some prompts, right?
mhm.
Now the question is whether this meets the bar. And for that, you know, there are a aspect about establishing the ground truth, right? What is considered a good output? Some company use existing documentation, some company um, done some additional processing, and then sort of output criterias. Just you know, for example, a good for a good, legal letter. In addition, there are some elements that you are particularly interested in. The style of writing, how rigid the logic in the arguments, and so on and so forth. So there's some in addition to sort of basic documentation, there's a set of call call it quality criteria that we also care about, and we use that to um, the output as well. So that's kind of the foundation for evaluation, and then let's see, and then yeah, back to the question: do we use AI or human? Right? There's a trade off that I think yeah, it will cost a little more and might be a little slower for using an expert to
Mm-hmm.
really review so the AI version versus the ground truth version, and then try to give you a score by the criteria that you set up. Or a lot of AI product do now is they will use two models to do that. So they generate the production model. They don't use the most. Um, they use the lighter model, the
Mm-hmm.
cheaper lighter model. That's enough for to generate the baseline, and then they use the most heavy. A lot of companies use ChatGPT 4.5 as the sort of the biggest model as the evaluation model. So they use those two models together to and then you need another set of prompts, right, to ask this big model on to instruct him to how to evaluate the product from the smaller model. So,
Mm-hmm.
so that's those are the two approaches, using humans versus using a big AI model.
Yeah, the discussion of using a lower cost model for some of the heavier lifting makes me wonder, did you look at DeepSeek at all, or have you since evaluated it? What's your take on that? Maybe that's a good combo. You use the DeepSeek for the
Deep
production and then ChatGPT 4.5 for the evaluation.
Yeah, I did. I mean, it was hard to ignore, and I did sort of get a lot of coffee to try to read through their white paper.
Yeah.
And then I was impressed. There's some true um, true innovation on how they train model there to optimize. Yeah, I think it speaks to the saying about scarcity is the mother of invention or something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
they don't have to compare, right? So they were optimizing their how they how they do flow points. They were trying to look at a bigger sort of size of token at a time compared to do with more granular processing. But yet they're also innovative. They apply this, right. They have two models. They have the V3 and the R1. The R1 one, they as opposed to so they do pretty much they do unsupervised training for that one
Hmm.
to just let AI learn itself, which is a pretty bold. And then it worked out for them. Our run has at least good benchmark score. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was fascinating.
Incredible. So you've got this thing that produces these application materials, and then you evaluate it. Sounds like the quality was pretty good. The lawyers are pretty impressed with it. So now, as a PM, like, is this mission accomplished? Like, what was it like trying to get it actually into lawyers' workflow and actually have it be used in real life?
Yeah, that's a good question because no, it's because for enterprise software, and back to the earlier point about competition with more general model, I feel like I do appreciate the value of SaaS software, the integration aspect, the adoption integration. There are two things that for this business beyond just good product, good user experience. One is the integration with the rest of their product ecosystem.
Hmm.
They have all this type of data management, case management system. They have forest tracking. Just all kind of existing software that um, you need to work with a lot of those systems. So that's one thing why I'm bullish about vertical AI is, I think there are a lot of uh, a lot of value for a well integrated software. So that's one part. And the second part is, I guess, for a lot of enterprise software, that data privacy and compliance are a huge concern um,
Mm-hmm.
for those clients. So that's something, um, AI probably doesn't. It's not a positive influence. It's not a positive development for that, because now they know you use some sort of LM, right, some sort of model, to process their data, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's new question now. They are getting more and more sophisticated. They will ask question like, so who's training my data? Where, how are they not being retrained and even leaked and things like that. So yeah, I think building the MVP is just day one.
Yeah. Well, did you get to a point where some of the lawyers not only were, you know, interacting with the demo, but actually putting it to work? And like, what was that like in terms of them trying to use it as part of their, their client work? Or are
Yeah,
they?
yeah, yeah. We have renew. It's a subscription base, so it's good to see a client has renewed and actually use the product. And we just get a bunch of feedbacks
Mhm.
about we need this too, things like that. So I guess uh, for that part, it's a good sign, right? That um, just from a typical new product standpoint. But it's also interesting that I think back to the AI product, and then for continuous improvements, I think more user and more data feedback definitely help. For example, offer user feedback right from the feature, the document itself. So so they can give instant feedback on how they like the draft, and then we can use those signals to
Mhm.
further kind of connect that back to our eval system, right? You can imagine we would try to encourage feedback that tied to how we define the quality of our documents, and then use their
Yeah.
response as a way to improve our prompts and our system. Um, so yeah, I think building that in is sort of a new thing we have to do for AI based product.
And were you able to kind of keep hallucinations pretty controlled, or I know that was always a concern earlier in Gen AI with the amount of hallucinations, but personally, I found it to be less common, at least with the latest ChatGPT stuff. Are you?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. How did you find it?
Yeah, it's definitely a concern, especially for such domain in
Mm,
legal. I think the way so um, the main the main strategy we go about it is um, we um, we we don't handle it at the model layer. We handle it more at the feature layer. So um, specifically, we would focus a lot on of um, the citation of those evidence. So meaning that, yeah, you can, yeah, that to give more confidence on the source
mhm.
and the credibility of those outputs, that it has to come from some credible source.
Carl, we only have a little bit of time left, but I want to ask you, if you could do it all over again, what would you do differently based on, now knowing kind of in hindsight, at least this -1 to 0 phase that you're in now?
Yeah. I mean, the product kind of works, so it'll be easier to answer. But there definitely a lot of lesson there. Um, I think the you, I think I might, I, I I don't know if I don't have evidence that investing in the UX layer more will help us, but my hunch is that it is also pretty valuable for the
Mm,
user. So everything we talk about so far in the prompt engineering, the outputs are all at the data level, right? Their 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 user experience is in some sort of customer flow, um, but we have to we have to focus most of our energy on the data layer. But I do feel like perception is reality, how they feel about the user flow. One good example I like a lot about you know AI product that does a good job in UX is Midjourney.
hmm
A lot of model can generate images from a prompt, but they also allow you to, but as opposed to a one-time transaction to get some image back, they let you sort of circle part of image and prompt against that specifically. So
hmm
to me, I think that's sort of a UX level sort of um, value that makes the whole product better. So I think, yeah, I love to, sort of invest more. I think there are potential and there are more to do there. We can on the UX level of the product instead of just here's some document, generate me, the content.
Yeah, that reminds me. I worked on a project where we're building this AI powered enterprise healthcare product, and it had a bunch of models underneath that we spent a lot of time building and training. And since it was healthcare, you have to be really careful with what you do with
Right.
the data and all that. And we got it to a point where we're like, oh my God, look at the precision and recall for these ML models predicting certain things. And we were like high-fiving, like, this is amazing. Like, look at how great this thing is. And when we put it out there, one of the first things we realized was like, oh, well, users are having trouble logging in. And we were like,
That's right.
oh, well, we didn't test all that
Yeah.
stuff. That's just
Right.
that's just
Right.
stupid front end work. That's
Right.
not the
Right.
real AI work. And
Right.
it's like, well, the user kind of cares about this stuff.
Right. That's
So
funny.
it's a common pattern. You got to kind of have to do both. I mean, I think there are cases where a better integrated, more smooth, seamless part of the user's workflow. There are probably situations where users would prefer that with a inferior model underneath
Mm,
than the Mac Daddy model that's just a
right.
pain in the ass to use in another tab, and they have to log in with a different credential and all this stuff.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. How to extract the most value from LLM, not just from the prompt, right? But how to extract that from different. In a way, prompt is just one type of UI, right? That
Mm-hmm.
how to use different voice and every other things to extract maximum value and then put that package all together. That's like another talk, but I think
Yeah,
that's like a fascinating trend.
yeah, super cool. I appreciate you coming on the show, Carl. I did you wrote a blog post or shared some takeaways out? Can people find some more insights from you out there?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I can I can share my Substack.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
the
what's your
links.
Substack called? So I'll also put a link in the bottom, but just so people can look for it.
I think it's just my name,
Yeah,
Color Wu. Yeah.
nice. Anything else that you wanted to share before we wrap up? It's been really cool to kind of hear the nitty gritty versus just sort of the talking points. So appreciate you being willing to kind of be transparent about that stuff.
Yeah, I think just how in this is a special time we are in, and how big AI is and how early we are, and just you know how a small team can disrupt such potentially disrupt such huge industry that um yeah, so I think, yeah, lucky to be alive right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty nutty. If you told me 5 years ago, hey, I'm going to build a new product for lawyers that will help draft, complex application materials with a high error cost and large amount of complexity, I'd be like, okay, yeah, you've got like a 30, 40 person company and you have a bunch of ML engineers and you're
Right,
doing a bunch of supervised learning and all this kind of thing. And nowadays it's like, no, you could put something together with a single digit number of people and offer nearly the same, if not more value. It just definitely seems like the venture economics are changing real fast. And you wonder, you got all this money getting poured into foundational model companies, but maybe the real story is the long tail of
right.
scrappy vertical AI companies that they might be 3 to 10 people and making millions of dollars or in a month kind of thing. And that might be the new normal. So it'll be fun to see how this all unfolds. Carl, maybe last question for you is, what's one thing when it comes to AI that you think most PMs get wrong, that you're like,
Mm.
hey, a lot of people have this misunderstanding or they're not seeing this blind spot? Anything that you want to share for people to kind of marinate on before we wrap up?
Um, yeah, no, that's a great question. I think it's actually less about AI.
Mm-hmm.
As less about AI for building AI product. I think it's still overestimating the power of AI and underestimating the importance for the core use case. The wedge of your MVPs, like the realness of the problem. I feel like because AI give you this, it's magical. It give you this sense
Mm-hmm.
of like, superpower that I can do anything, right? And sort of estimating sort of the typical, risk and challenge of a new product. So that's something I keep trying to remind myself.
Yeah, man. PM fundamentals.
Yeah.
I think because AI is so powerful, I think the temptation to just build stuff in search of a problem is greater than ever.
Right, right.
And
Yeah,
and we all make this mistake. We all get excited about, oh my God, this thing's so
right.
cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's good advice and appreciate you coming on, man.
Appreciate the opportunity. It's fun.
Love it. All right. Well, we'll see everybody next time and we will continue the conversation.
All right.